Welcome to the Brass Junkies, a podcast from the Pedal Note Media Podcast Network, featuring interviews with the world's greatest brass players by two thoroughly average ones, Lance LaDuke and myself, Andrew Hitz. Today's episode features international trumpet star Rex Richardson. This guy regularly plays in countries that Lance and I haven't even heard of before. He's a classical soloist, jazz star, member of rhythm and brass, and college professor, and he tells us all about it next. Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Brass Junkies. I am one of your co-hosts, Andrew Hitz, and I am joined, as always, by Lance LaDuke. Lance, how are you doing this evening?
I'm great.
You sound really great, man. Are you sure?
Yeah.
All right. I would ask you what's wrong, but I don't care. So we are actually joined by not one but two legendary trumpet players, as they all are, but we're joined by two legendary trumpet players tonight. One is Rex Richardson, and the other is Jens Lindemann. First up is Rex Richardson, who is an international soloist, which, he plays all over the place. Rex, how are you doing this evening?
Oh, great, man. I'm trying not to look at Lance because he makes me laugh, but besides that, I'm doing great. Everything's great.
What are you talking about?
All right. This is either going to be really entertaining for the audience or it's going to be the worst one. I think that's and it's really not your fault. So
it could be. It's already going that direction, I think.
Yep, and
worst ever.
We've also got one of our producers, Buddy Deschler, on the call. How are you, buddy?
Doing great.
Okay, that's enough. Thank you. So anyway,
another legendary trumpet
player. Yes, exactly. So. The first things first, we need to give an enormous thank you to Rex because he was our second interview, and Lance and I started this podcast before we knew what we were doing, which is evidenced by the fact that you're listening now because we still don't. But we ended up. It ended up that the connection was not quite as good as we thought it was, and Rex was hard to understand, and he's just so articulate and insightful. We did an entire hour-long interview with him, and then we listened to it and then realized that it was really rough. So he is such a good friend that we actually had the fortitude to say, hey, man, can we do it again? And he said, sure, why not? So big thank you to you, Rex.
My pleasure, man. I appreciate you forcing me to get the vocal coaching over the last 3 months just so we could do a better version this time. Yeah, it only cost me a few $1,000s, but I think I'm ready now, man.
Hopefully.
Sounds much better, right? Much better vocal production, better enunciation. The whole
you need
deal.
your money. Get your money back.
Yeah, man.
It was actually the material. It just wasn't that interesting, but we're giving you you do all sorts of cool stuff, so we're figuring that it's going to be better this time. So
you can't talk about a third valve spring for 45 minutes and expect us to leave that in.
Right, that was a bad call. Absolutely. You kept trying to stop me too.
Which leads me to the first question. What kind of mouthpiece do you use, Rex?
I use
we don't care. Okay.
Well, I just want to tell you this. I use a trumpet mouthpiece.
Oh. Whoa.
Yeah. You didn't expect that, did you?
No, that was a little more clever than I was expecting.
You don't expect anything clever from me, do you? I see how it goes. Yeah.
The 2008 ITG at Banff that I went around and asked people for. We were there for 5 full days, the entire time, and I had a running tally. I went around and asked as many trumpet players as I could with a straight face what kind of mouthpiece they played on.
Right.
And I counted how many people I actually got to answer the question before I pointed out that I really didn't care because I play the tuba. And my favorite one was Jay Michalak, who's a great trumpet player who lives up in Calgary. He plays with the Foothills Brass, and he and I lived across the hall from each other at Northwestern. And we hadn't seen each other in forever, and we were very excited to see each other. And it was about 5 minutes in, and I slipped it in really craftily. I slipped in the question of what mouthpiece does he play, and he actually started to answer, and he was he was like halfway through the first sentence, and then he looked at me, and then he said some curse words loudly. He's like, "Man," he's like, "you don't care," and I was laughing so hard that I hit the ground. So that was the highlight of my trip. What was the highlight of your trip, Lance?
That's great. That whole story is going deleted, right? Is that? Oh, sorry. Please, Lance, continue.
The other thing that you and I did, Andrew, on that entire trip was anytime we saw a trumpet player that we recognized, we would say, "Oh my God, there's Rex Richardson," or "Oh my God, there's Jens Lindemann." And the one day we saw Rex 18 times. So every time he turned around, there's knuckleheads A and B pretending to be very impressed with his
No, that was awesome because within like one day, everyone at the conference thought I was famous. Because of you guys, man.
Yeah, we did that.
I sold 1,000 CDs that week. I mean, it was killing.
When the euphonium player and the tuba player at the trumpet conference are impressed by you, that leads to sales.
They didn't know. They didn't see your instruments, man. They thought they just, you were some well-meaning musician, and it went a long way. So thanks.
Hey, man, it's what we do.
We did that to Sean Jones, and he had a reaction as well that I have to leave for the unedited adult-only version.
That was
he wasn't
good.
having it.
No, and he wasn't having it multiple times because
that's right.
Everybody, Lance and I had a great week.
We did.
We were just,
Sean's a big guy. I wouldn't want to make him mad, man. Think twice about that.
Yeah, that's probably a good point. In retrospect, thanks. So
that's his next album is Rextrospect.
Oh, thank you for that.
Oh, that's terrible.
That's it.
That's as bad as my story.
Well, how many puns do we have on the? We got the Rex. What's the
Rextrospect?
Uh-huh.
The wheels are turning, man.
I know. I can see it. You're writing it down. Starts with an R.
Yep. Yep.
All right, so you play the trumpet, and this is going really well. We're 6.5 minutes in. I feel like we owe the audience an apology.
Yeah, everyone's tuned out by now.
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry to both of you.
I'm apologizing to no one, because everyone has been like, I'm going to check out the next episode. Yeah. We're hoping to get Joe Alessi after you, so everybody's going to skip you anyways. But Jens
will be funnier anyway. So
well, there is that. So you play in a fantastic brass quintet that has 6 people in it. Because you got drums. But Rhythm and Brass, which has been around forever and a day, and you guys are one of the most creative acts out there, and I would like to hear you tell us about Rhythm and Brass and what it's, how you got involved with them in the first place, and then what it's like being with the same group of guys for so long.
Yeah, it's been great, man. This July will mark 20 years that we've had the same 6 guys in the group.
Wow.
But there's an irony there. I mean, when we started out, the group was created in 1993, and the 2 guys who I replaced and Tom Brantley replaced, I mean, they had to split for various reasons, and we had a really busy scene initially. I mean, we're out like probably not so different than what Boston Brass has been doing, out about 6 months out of the year, and it was a full-time endeavor. But then we had a couple of bad seasons, and the funny thing was, I was an idiot with like a bachelor's degree in anthropology at the time.
Wait, when you say bad, you mean like low dates or?
Yeah, we had a couple of seasons where we just couldn't book a lot of dates, And in that time, all the guys who had master's degrees kind of scrambled. They all kind of got teaching gigs. And I'm like, duh. Hey, guys, what do I do? So I did end up actually going to grad school. And I went to LSU and got a master's and doctorate in trumpet there. But what it ended up meaning is that once things started to pick up for us again, we couldn't actually go full time again because all the guys except me really had families and they had full time jobs pretty quickly. And so as it goes in the business, so often you're either going to be out all the time doing this kind of thing as a brass group, or you're not going to do quite enough to make it the kind of endeavor you want. I think very few groups have struck that kind of balance, where they can all kind of have a real home base and yet keep a group going. American Brass Quartet comes to mind, of course. For years and years, they've done their 25 concerts a year or so. They're all based in New York. But the fact that we all lived all over the place made that really tough. And so the way things have evolved is, we still get out to play some concerts here and there, and it's always a blast. I mean, it's amazing the chemistry you can have with a group once you play with them for so long. A long time will go sometimes before gigs, and it just feels like very natural, But the main thing I find so rewarding about the group musically is that everyone was really interested in trying to experiment. The general rule was, if you're interested in some music, bring it into a rehearsal, arrange it, or write it. And so we had a lot of original music. We had a lot of music that you might not expect to hear in a brass setting. And obviously a lot of groups, including, starting with Canadian Brass and going through Boston Brass, a lot of groups have really kind of reinvented the rules for repertoire. But I think the thing that was kind of cool about Rhythm of Brass is that it would get even more twisted sometimes, In particular, our sixth member, the percussionist, Dave Gluck, lots of times when you think of a brass group with a percussionist, you see him as kind of the extra guy. But Dave was really kind of at the heart of everything creative in the group. The most active composer and the primary arranger for the group. And he'd bring in stuff I never would have thought of. He would just go crazy sometimes. I remember one time he brought in a piece that combined Eric Satie with Kraftwerk, that crazy German band from the 80s, man, the techno band. I was like, what? How did you come up with this, And then he'd bring in a Madonna chart. And there was just no rules. And for me, that was always kind of the funnest thing. We'd try anything, and if it worked, and if we thought we sounded good, we do it. And lots of things we realize, hey, man, this is not working for us. Either we don't have the right instrumentation or the right musical understanding for this particular piece. But we always give it an honest try, and I think a lot of really cool programming came out of that.
I just saw you guys at the South Central Regional Tuba Euphonium Conference that Lance and I presented at just a couple months ago. Lance came in the day after you guys played because he didn't really care enough to get there in time to see you. But
I still don't.
But yeah, you guys did your usual Pink Floyd thing, but you also on the same program, I think it was the second tune, you did some Bach piece that was just it was exquisite with how the ensemble and just everything was. I mean, it was really incredible. So there's a lot of groups that can do one of those, and not a lot of groups that can do both of those. And that's what's so convincing about you guys, is that you do the weird stuff, you do the completely straight ahead stuff, you do the kind of weird stuff, but it's all absolutely just kind of top level artistry, which is leaves some of us in awe.
Oh, do you? How many days are you guys out? How many concerts do you do a year?
I mean, it's only a handful a year these days. It's just not much.
So does the show probably doesn't, and because of that, you probably don't have that much time to work on new stuff. It doesn't
change very much, or at least not very quickly. Yeah, it's like we don't. It'd be an entirely different matter if we all live in the same city, of course, but. Given that we play a handful of dates a year and we're far flung across the entire country, there's no chance to really dig in to find new repertoire. We had a really cool thing going for a few years at the University of Arkansas at Fayetteville. We do their band camp every year. It was really the actual requirements for us of this thing were incredibly small. We do a concert, and the rest of the time we would hang out and kind of relax, and besides that, rehearse for several hours a day, learning new repertoire. It was our chance to put together new music for each season. But once that kind of fell by the wayside, it became really harder and harder to find time to get together. And all the guys, man, I'm the only one who doesn't have kids, And once all the guys had kids, it was a lot harder for them to want to head out of town, obviously.
So do you guys book yourselves right now, or do you have a manager?
Yeah, we had management for a while, but we parted ways with them several years ago.
So who handles all that?
Whiff
does. And now you guys, as Andrew mentioned, and you guys were always sort of pushing the envelope in terms of what those mashups that you talked about before and where you were interested in going. How willing were the audiences to go where you wanted to go?
I mean, it always seemed to kind of work. I mean, I remember Andrew mentioned the Pink Floyd thing. What he's talking about is this 22-minute monstrosity called Temporary Heartbeat that Dave Gluck, our insane drummer, wrote. And he's basically, it's a mashup with Dark Side of the Moon and The Wizard of Oz and David Lynch's movie Wild at Heart.
It's brilliant.
It's nuts, man. And it's every now and then we've done it for an audience and they seem to be a little bit just kind of lost by the end, but that's been very, very rare. I mean, I remember we premiered that in a very tiny town in Iowa. We thought, oh man, they're going to kill us. They're going to throw stuff at us, run us out of the room. And they didn't, man. And our audience was mostly quite elderly. And they dug it. And so that was really inspiring for us. And I think what we started to learn is that if you take a certain attitude towards how you present the music, lots of times the audience is just going to go with you, And we've never tried to have a super kind of hip persona on stage, man. We just go out and we play and we talk about the music a bit, you know what I mean? And so I remember seeing a string group, I'm not going to mention the names, but a very good string group, but they went out and played a bunch of contemporary music and people didn't really know what was up and they didn't say a word. And I could just feel the audience slipping away. And I was in the audience too, feeling, I was like, oh man, I never want to do that to anyone, And thankfully, Rhythm and Brass has seemed to avoid that. We'll try crazy stuff, but we it's never been like if you don't get it, you don't deserve to kind of vibe. It's always, I think we've always been sensitive to that. It's like, we're playing crazy stuff and we can't expect people to get that. Let's try to talk to them a little bit, like help them get an idea of what the experience is supposed to be, and that seems to work. Because it's always been very important for us to leave the room feeling like people had a nice time, fundamentally. I mean, it's not like we're not artists playing music that, we don't care if they understand. I mean, we've never been able to cop that vibe, man. We're just not interested in that. And so we find ways, that's the thing I like most about the group. It's like, how do we take music that we like and share it with other people? It's a very pure mission, you know what I mean? It's not driven by like, well, what do people want to hear? Let's find some people want to hear. Or conversely, let's just find the most esoteric stuff possible, so we're just serving the art. It's really about trying to find a way to tell the stories we want to tell, but in a way that is going to reach people.
Do you have a sense of where let's say you could have kept going full time? Do you have a sense of where that might have gone, or the kinds of are there tunes that you wish you could have tackled and you just didn't have the time for, or a direction you might have gone?
I mean, that's a great question. I think what continues to have evolved over the years is all of us checking out more and more music.
Right.
And several of us are active as composers. Probably the three most active composers in the group are Dave, myself, and Alex Houchin. Alex would just write a thing here and there, and it's like some of the baddest stuff I've ever heard. He's just a great writer. He just really has found time to do it, But everything he's written, I've really enjoyed playing with the group. But, we've always been finding new bands that we've been checking out, or new jazz artists or composers that are inspiring us. And when we were kind of in the thick of it, that would always be kind of, creative fodder. This is stuff that we would bring into the rehearsal and try to shape for our own devices, And so I think it would just be more and more of that. I mean, there's...
what would be on your list right now? Like if you were you needed to bring a half dozen tunes by the end of the summer.
Brazilian Girls. Have you heard of this band?
I mean music. Sorry. My bad. No.
I should clarify. That is the name of a band.
Nice save.
No.
I was not making some sort of untoward reference to.
I was going to make a note, but I don't want to put that.
Oh, geez, everyone's going to hang up now. No, that is actually the name of a band. They're called Brazilian Girls, and the funny thing is, there's only one girl, and none of them is a Brazilian. So it's a bit of a misnomer, but incredibly creative stuff. And
what's the instrumentation? Like, what's the?
It's
tuba, of course.
Of course, a band's got to have a tuba, or it's not a band, right?
Ding.
It's pretty traditional in terms of rock and pop, bass drum, guitar based stuff, but it's so eclectic it's really hard to describe in terms of genre. Just about anything you can imagine. And what really struck me is their live shows. I got to hear them twice at the 930 Club in DC live, and I was just kind of knocked out. So there's some of their tunes that I would love to have been able to dig into and try to adapt for rhythm and brass. Might not happen given how seldom we get to play these days. But
do you see a point in the future where your kids are off to school and there's enough flexibility and enough years in tenure that you could sneak out for a longer period of time each year, or that's just not in the cards?
I don't really see it in the cards. And one of the reasons that I'm mostly active as a soloist now. That's kind of where most of my
fancy.
Sorry.
No,
you and the Brazilian girl.
Most of my creative energy is kind of going that direction, and sort of working out the schedule to even be able to do rhythm and brass gigs has become more of a challenge, And I think for all the guys, man, some of them have, like Charlie's daughter, she's only 12, I think, not even that. Maybe 10. So she, it's going to be a while before.
It'll be a while.
She's off to college, whatever. And Whiff's amazing. He was a granddad while he was in his 40s, man. That guy was, what's the word? Prolific, I would say.
Okay, we'll go with that.
Is that the word you were searching for?
Precocious?
Effluviant? Let's see.
Perseverance?
Well, the cool thing about Whiff scene is that he had children so young that he was still really young by the time they all went up to college, and he had a lot more freedom, But it's all been a different scene. I haven't even started that whole scene yet, And so, so I don't see things changing too much. Not really significantly in terms of us being able to do a heck of a lot more gigs than we're doing now.
What do you see in the brass, I was going to say brass quintet, but in the brass marketplace right now that's interesting to you? Or what do you wish you would see more of? You can handle that either way.
Well, that's a great question. I hate to say that again, Lance, but great question.
You can say that all you need to. It's
Make me think, and I have mixed feelings about being forced to think. I have to say it. My brain's got hurting a little bit.
You can go take a nap after this. It's okay.
Well, the Minosa brass has been all the rage for a long time now, and I think that's quite justified, I have to say, in terms of who is really, the most recent group to completely reinvent what a traveling brass group can be. One of the things I'm most interested in is what those guys are going to do every season. What are they going to come up with next? I'm just kind of blown away by so many creative forces at work there with these guys who also, so many things that have nothing to do with music, with all these guys who also happen to be world-class brass players, In terms of what's next, man, it's hard to say. There's, I think it always comes up with young brass groups because, a new group forms and they're like, well, what do we do? And most of the time they're starting off, they're checking out Boston brass, they're checking out, everyone has checked out Canadian, of course, because they've had such an impact. Empire brass. Empire was probably the biggest influence on rhythm and brass when they came on the scene. When they sent me the first couple of CDs, they made at least 2 CDs, I think, before I joined the group. I was like, man, these guys sound like Empire on the Broke stuff, which I was really kind of blown away by. And it made me run to start practicing immediately before I try to audition for them. Of course, it's timely to note that Rolf Smedvig has just passed away. You know, a guy who is just a real powerful influence on me as a player. When I was in high school, I did the Tanglewood seminar while Empire Brass was still doing it, and just spending all those hours around all those guys. Sam Playfair was there at the time, Scott Hardman, Tim Morrison. You know, it was amazing. And
what year were you there?
I was there in '85 and '86.
Cool.
And but I think the groups that really succeed are the ones that craft their performance approach around their personalities. I mean, as opposed to, you know, just trying to cop something else. I mean, you kind of start off that way. It's the same thing with jazz players learn how to play. If you're like, man, I got to find my own language, and you don't transcribe and you don't listen and copy, you're not going to learn the language, you know. But eventually, some kind of musical personality that is unique needs to emerge out of that approach. And I think it's the same thing with brass groups. I mean, you have to form your performance practice around your own very particular personalities. And you saw that with Boston Brass, man. It's like I saw different folks come in and out of that group, and it was really fascinating to see your conscious, to see how it would evolve around the personalities. And you guys were always really, really hip about that. You just let that evolve the way it was supposed to. And that always made the performances really compelling, you know?
We had more peculiar personalities than particular personalities, but present company included.
That's what makes it exciting, man.
So you are annoyingly good at both classical playing and jazz playing. Like, not annoying, it's infuriating, actually. That's the more honest. I mean, it seems to me that you could make your living doing either one of those just as a straightforward kind of, you know, genre. You're that good at both of them. So what I want to know is, are you a classical player who learned jazz? Or are you a jazz player who learned classical? Were they both simultaneous? You know, how did that whole thing evolve?
Yeah, well, thanks for the compliment, first of all, man. That's very kind of you. I mean,
Lance is here to ask the good questions. I'm here to compliment you.
Well, I need that, man. Thank you.
Hey, no problem.
I need both the mental stimulation and the ego stimulation. So thanks to both you guys.
Wait, what's Buddy's job then? Wait, just keep going. Never mind. Answer the question. Answer the question.
All right.
He's holding that fort, man.
That's it.
So, I mean, I started off as classically trained. I mean, when I was in high school, I didn't really do any jazz improvisation to speak of, but I was very serious as a trumpet player. I was kind of thing where I would practice so much my teacher would yell at me because I'd come into play and I couldn't get any notes out. He knew I'd been trying to play 4 hours a day when I had the endurance to play for like 15 minutes, you know, when I was a freshman in high school. But thankfully that, you know, that crazy, I don't know what it was, but it helped me to get better pretty quickly because I had a lot of catching up to do. I was really terrible when I was 14 years old. Oh my God, very bad trumpet player. But I went, once I, you know, at the time, I didn't get a lot of support for my interest in jazz, and so I was sort of a closet jazz fan. You know, I'd go home and listen to my Woody Shaw records and Freddie Hubbard and Miles Davis, and didn't really know how to seek out the right kind of guidance in terms of figuring out how to master that music. But once I went to Northwestern, once I went to Chicago, I was exposed to a completely different kind of community. I was able to go out to these jam sessions and just start playing. The downside of that, of course, is that I was terrible, man. I would show up at a jam session and start playing and be like, man, something bad. This is not good. But I would just start asking people, man, what do I practice? And so there were a lot of great musicians, like Brad Good was there in Chicago at the time. He was a really great trumpet mentor to me. Brad, if you know Brad, he's teaching in Boulder in Colorado now. Incredible jazz trumpet player and all-around musician. He actually has a degree in bass too, like jazz bass.
Jeez.
And so one cool thing was, as I was learning how to play, I would like start getting these cocktail gigs, these crappy little cocktail gigs, and I would hire Brad to play bass because he knew like a billion tunes, and he would be like teach me on the bandstand.
Wow.
So I would learn from all kinds of musicians there. Now, the weird thing was, when I was 22, I got so frustrated with my jazz playing, I basically said, I'm going to start playing classical trumpet for a minute here until I figure this out. And that ended up being 3 years where I didn't really, I mean, I would still play some gigs, but I wasn't really dealing with, C trumpet or piccolo trumpet or anything along those lines. I was just completely immersed in jazz. And the only thing that took me out of that mode was rhythm and brass. Because when they called, I was like, man, I don't know, I'm kind of doing my jazz thing. This is a different vibe, But when I heard the recordings, I really got inspired by that. And I started calling my friends in the Lyric Opera Orchestra, Neil Bernstein, who now is in the Pittsburgh Symphony. He was playing in Chicago then, and Kevin Hartman, those guys, man, they were giving me lessons and helped me to get back on track so I could barely scrape by and win an audition with Rhythm and Brass. And I got really lucky, too. That I'll try to make the story short, but the way I actually ended up winning that job is kind of funny. I'd flown out to Pittsburgh, Kansas, a small town, to hang out with those guys for the day. They were doing a concert, so I sat in, and that was the first phase of my audition. And they said, okay, that went well. We're going to be in Chicago in 10 days or 9 days or so. Why don't you come out into Indiana? I think it was like Porter's, Indiana, and come play a concert. And we'll leave the second trumpeter home, the guy you're auditioning for, and that'll be part of your audition. I said, okay, cool. Well, that Sunday, I got a call from Alex, and they're like, man, and Bob Thompson was a guy who I was going to replace, who now has become this incredible music entrepreneur, is doing all kinds of stuff. He was too smart to be a trumpet player, I should say. No offense, buddy.
That's setting the bar high.
Bob was sick, man, and they were at O'Hare Airport in Iowa, and like, man, can you come play a gig tonight? And I'm like, well, yeah. I mean, so they flew me. I landed in Burlington, Iowa, like a half hour before the downbeat, and I ran to the hall. They put a coat on me, and I sight read like 2/3 of the show on stage. The other third of it I had practiced for the audition, you know what I mean? And then I had to stay out for another couple of days because there were blizzards that wouldn't let me get back to Chicago or to get Bob Thompson back out of the road. And they saw me under the worst possible circumstances. I mean, everything kind of gelled, And then I went home, and it came out like a day later to Indiana. And when I showed up, they offered me the job.
How many stories are there like that in the music business? It's incredible.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, because everything has to kind of line up, and especially because I know who they're going to hear afterwards. I'm not going to say who it was, but it was a super bad trumpet player. They would not have hired me, man, if they heard this cat play. So it was just the fact that I was the guy in, right time, right place, and showing up. And thankfully, I had been doing a lot of reading. I was doing freelance work all the time. So I was comfortable showing up in sight reading that much music. It would be really tough for me these days. I don't do as much reading,
Oh, that's awesome.
Can I back you up for just a second? You talked about the fact that when you were young, in your teens, you recognized that you were terrible, in your words, but then you set out to do something about it. Then later on, you recognized that you're going to these open mics or these jam sessions, and you're not doing as well as you wanted to. Let's just say it that way.
It's terrible.
A lot of times people hit a wall and they go, oh, I don't do this very well, and they just don't do it anymore, and they run in the opposite direction. What was it that caused you to bust through that and say, here's the thing I don't do well, and I'm going to go lay it out there anyway and put the effort into mastering this thing that I can't do?
Yeah. I don't want to say that's a great question again because I'm tired of saying that to you, Lance. But
I just watched Charlie Rose twice.
Man, just your brain is on steroids, man. Killing. No, but it is a great question. What comes to mind to me is that I always just felt like I had to be able to do it. What's mysterious to me is where that impetus came from. I don't know. When I was 14, I still remember being a freshman in high school and getting to going to district bands and getting last chair in the second band. I was 24th. But then the following year I was third chair All-State. You know what I mean? And that was just nothing but just busting my butt to figure it out. And I had a great teacher. I had great guidance. So I have to absolutely give credit there. But I worked really hard. And the only thing I can say is I felt like I was supposed to, I needed to figure it out. Because it wasn't a cakewalk. There was so much frustration along the way, especially with jazz, because I got a relatively late start digging into it. And man, I would get so bummed out at these jam sessions. One of the problems I had really, and kind of ironically, is that my technique came really fast on the trumpet for some reason. The musicianship did not. That took a lot longer, but it's like by the time I was 17, I could do anything on the instrument I can do now. I don't know why it came so quickly, but the problem with that is that when it came to playing jazz, I would play a lot of junk, man. It was basically talking loud and saying nothing, not making any sense, not bothering to make the changes, not bothering to play with good time or play with any sense of structure. But I had all this facility, and that kind of fooled me into thinking I was doing something worthwhile. I think had I had a little more balance with how everything evolves, I would have grown into my technique as a jazz player more naturally. But as it was, I had to learn to edit. I mean, when I was 22, it was like, my first step was saying, you're not going to play anything faster than quarter notes and solos anymore until you can actually do it and make sense doing it. But the process was very frustrating. The only thing that seemed to spur me on was that I had to figure it out. I felt like I was supposed to, because man, I wanted to quit so many times. Believe me, I really did.
I think anybody who gets to the level that you're at, anybody who masters a thing, I think you have to go through that. I mean, I think that's just part of what steels you to go forward, right?
It does seem that way. I mean, when you hear the stories, I mean, all my heroes in the jazz side of things there always seem to be stories of struggle. You know, whether you look at Louis Armstrong's life or what Miles Davis went through figuring out to play Coltrane, I mean, who was practicing incessantly. Woody Shaw, who was one of my biggest trumpet heroes, and he would just practice all the time. He practiced to the point his chops would be busted up, you know what I mean? But these guys all figure it out, and while I would be an utter fool to compare my accomplishments to them in any sense, which I'm absolutely not doing, they still inspire me to say, you know, it's like these guys worked for it, man. They weren't messing around, and so I got to do the same.
I was interviewing Dr. Tim Lotzenheiser yesterday for my Entrepreneurially Musician podcast, and there were just two small world things said. First of all, the first like inspirational, like motivational speech that he ever gave to students was he was like working on staff, and the people who were being flown in to wherever he was to give the pep talks. They were all on the same plane, and the plane was 4 hours late, and so there was a room full of people, and the boss said, "Hey Tim, get out there and do it," and he said, "Okay," and now he's Dr. Tim. So, which Check is right. I mean, say very similar story to yours, and then. Also, I asked him, what kind of an entrepreneurial skill would he recommend to any young band director, knowing that you don't just get dropped into the most ideal band's program. You're not starting at the top. And what he said was what you exactly just said about your jazz playing, which was just like perseverance, and that when you get knocked down, to get back up every single time and to just keep moving forward, and to expect to encounter roadblocks and problems and failure and all of that. So that was funny because I thought of the first thing and I was going to interject, but the conversation went on, and then I thought of the second thing right after that. It's like the same interview. So
yeah, man.
Yeah, you're not quite as charming as him, but it's the same. It's the same True. Insights. So, so I wanted to give you an opportunity. I'm sure that you've heard about the chop problems that our dear friend Jens, who's coming up at the end of this episode, has been having of late, and so I just didn't know if you maybe wanted to offer him a since you're talking about perseverance, offer him some encouraging words.
I just want to tell everyone to please pray for Jens.
That's sweet, man.
That is sweet.
Yeah.
That's really nice of you.
It's from the heart, man. From the heart.
What do you have any advice for him? Like, what do you any methodology or some kind of a creamy balm or salve he could apply to his chops? Or
creamy balm or salve? Is that what you said?
What?
Yeah.
I heard that a good fistful of driveway gravel between the lips and teeth overnight works wonders.
Overnight.
Yeah, man. That's where you get your sweet tone from, right? Yeah, it's the driveway gravel.
It's so gravelly, absolutely.
Yeah, there you go. They've got a lot of gravel driveways in Los Angeles where Jens lives, so that's going to be really easy advice for him to follow through on. So you have Lance and I have been a lot of places in the world, and you've been to a lot more than we have. So
I think that's true. But...
I think it's true. The last time that you were on the Unusable, you told us a story about some country that you went to. I don't even remember what the country was. It was some crazy country. Do you remember that story?
Trumpets
no.
Over,
it's something
Bugles
about
Bugles over Zagreb. Right?
Oh
no, not the recording. No, this was
I
like
know, but that's what caused him to
that
be...
is what. And I was going to ask you about your two albums, but no, this was like some place that like some country that the U.S. doesn't recognize or something, and that like and that you didn't know that before you went there.
That would be the Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus.
Yeah,
right.
There you go. That was on the tip of my tongue.
Is not a good place for an American to lose their passport.
That sounds like something Buddy would do.
Yeah, Buddy's too smart, man. No, that's a Rex thing all the way, man.
So you lost your passport in a country that the United States does not formally recognize exists?
And neither does the UN.
Oh.
So how are you
And
here?
I lost my horns, man.
Yeah,
even better.
So I showed up. I flew in. I had to come in on Turkish Airlines. My connection was Istanbul, and I only fly Star Alliance. Like I fly United. They tag the bags priority. I'm like, they're not gonna lose the bags, right? They lost the bag. I have to check this big Trumpet case, and so I'm going to deal with the missing baggage officer, and the guy doesn't speak English. Not shocking, considering we were in the Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus, which is not recognized by the U.S. or the UN. And he takes my passport, he gives it back, but he's open to a page that has my Brazilian visa, which has a photo. And if you're a fool like this guy was, you might think that's the passport page. It's like, oh, you're Brazilian. I'm like, what? No, man. It says United States on the front, so I open it again. It's like, he takes it back to make another Xerox. In the meantime, I got a call saying the people who were here to get me are out front, and somehow in the confusion, I left without getting my passport. And I figured out as you go to the hotel and you hand over your passport, and it's like, oh no,
no,
and I still don't have any horns. So, and let's just say Yamaha does not have a strong presence in the Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus. So like I couldn't be like, cats, give me a horn. There's no. So that was bad, but it all worked out. It was just about 12 hours of anxiety, and
it all worked out in that. What happened?
Well, my horns were destroyed. No, I'm just kidding. The horns were found and they were delivered, and my friends were very persistent. The folks that were actually hosting me, they went back to the airport and got a hold of my passport, and so I was basically saved by the kindness of friends.
There you go.
Yeah.
So
yeah, you don't want to mess with.
There?
Yeah, you don't want to mess with passports and visas. That's for sure. No. We were once heading to Thailand actually. We were checking in Nashville, and then it became clear that Jose needed a visa since he was a Costa Rican citizen, and yeah. So anyway,
handwritten passport.
And he has long since become an official U.S. citizen, but we didn't need visas, but he did. And
wait, so he learned how to speak English?
And hey now, hey, we're supposed to we only make fun of Jens here.
I love you, Jose.
But anyway, it was a noteworthy morning. You should ask Jeff Connor about it.
You should.
Yeah, it was. That
sounds terrible, man. Even the U.S. does that to people like. Do you guys know Richard Evans?
From Battle Creek. Yeah.
He's a great British brass band guy, man. He just turned 80 years old.
Wow.
And I think it was a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago, he had lost his passport, man, just trying to get out of the country. And just went through a really difficult experience. Not a fun guy not a fun experience for a guy who was about 78 at the time. So, yeah, it can be really bad. It's funny. It's like we're still reliant upon these little booklets when everything else is completely digitized. You know, most things you lose now. You lose a boarding pass. Man, back when you used to have paper tickets, that was a big deal. Ain't nothing now. But with passports,
we were once flying back from somewhere in Germany. I don't remember where, and we were flying home. This was the end of the tour, and it was dark 100 hours, and I had been up way too late. And the guy asked me, the passport control guy asked if my trip had been business or pleasure, and I said both. And as soon as I said that, I was like, oh no, because we did not have like work visas, so like that was not okay, and that's not something that you can be like, oh no, I mean no, it was not, you know, it's just pleasure. And the guy looked at me and he said oh, and with like knee-jerk reaction, I said what how in German do you say in-laws? And the guy said, and then the guy smiled. I said, you know how it's pleasure, but it feels like it's business. And the guy cracked up laughing. And then he said, have a safe trip home. And I love you, Mom and Dad-in-law. So yeah, they weren't there. I just completely lied to him.
Well done, man. See, I would have got my ass arrested in that situation. You completely talked yourself out of that. Man.
It just came flying out of my mouth, and if he had kept asking questions, it was going to make my life a lot worse. But I saved the day. So, but all the kids listening, you should not lie to passport control people. Yes. If you do, you should lie twice, not once. Yeah, that's the lesson, I guess.
Especially kiddies, don't lie about your in-laws.
Yeah, no,
it's not polite.
There's a lot of layers there, isn't there?
Yes, many layers.
All right, so you relatively recently released 2 albums. Can you, which Lance touched on one of them, can you tell us about those 2?
These were released in October. One is called Bugles Over Zagreb, and that was recorded live in concert in Zagreb, Croatia, with Croatian radio and television jazz orchestra.
It's awesome.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, it's great.
I'm glad you like it. The bizarre title comes from one of the pieces is called Ducal Bugles, and it's a tribute to Duke Ellington's great trumpet soloist. And all of it's written by a dear friend and colleague of mine at VCU named Doug Richards, who I think of as he's like a mad genius. He writes incredible, unplayable stuff, but if you can play it, it's worth it. And what else did we do? Oh, the other album that came out is called Blue Shift. It's a jazz quintet thing, a studio thing, done with one of my favorite living saxophonists, Steve Wilson, who's based in New York, is just an incredible artist, and along with a really fabulous Richmond-based rhythm section. So those are the 2, yeah.
Cool. Can you one other question I wanted to ask you was when we shared the bill with you on the Chicago Brass Festival a few years back, you played
shared the bill? We paid for that?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
You played a concerto by Jim Stevenson that he wrote for you with the brass band there. That was it was difficult. You made it seem very easy, but like it was like the first like 8 bars where I was like, why would anyone do that? Why would anyone attempt that? So, yeah, tell us about your relationship with Jim, because he's written you a couple of things, right?
Yeah, Jim, judging from Extreme, Jim hates me. Clearly, he wanted to hurt me, and he did with that piece. No, no. In all seriousness, Jim is a wonderful friend, and I think he's one of the biggest rising stars in the brass world as a composer. I mean, he's a phenomenon. I don't know how the guy does it. He wrote the original version, which was for full symphony orchestra. It's like a 20-minute some concerto in 2 weeks. And just, wow. That was it, man. And something would take a lot of composers 4 months, 5 months to do. But no, he's been really great, man. That concerto was originally written to premiere at the 2010 International Trumpet Guild Conference in Sydney. And from there, it's just taken on a life of its own. I mean, I think I've played it, I don't know how many countries, maybe a dozen different countries.
Wow.
And with orchestras, brass band, concert band, and with piano reduction. I love playing the piece. It does hurt to play. It is very challenging. It is maybe, in some ways, the most challenging thing I've ever had to play. But the musical awards are great. It's and people seem to really respond to it. So that's a lot of fun.
I don't know if you remember, but when I first saw you at that brass festival backstage, you handed me the what the hell is Buddy doing? He's so
inspired by Rex's talk.
He's got his trumpet out. He's like playing with.
Just got to get some practice in, man. He's a real deal.
Yeah, I think he just decided to start learning how to play jazz. So yeah, there you go. Yeah, take the mute out, man. We want to hear this. This could be good. So all of a sudden I look up and Buddy is just playing a trumpet. So you handed me the phone. You were talking to someone. I have no idea who you're talking to, and you said, "Wait, here's Andrew Hitz," and then you hand me the phone, and then I said, "Hello," and Jim said, "Hey, yeah, hi, this is Jim Stevens. Is it Jim Stevenson?" He said, "It's nice to meet you," and I said, "Yeah, it's nice to meet you too." And you were like, "Oh man, you can't still know one another?" And it was like exquisitely awkward because it was just like you aborted like mid sentence and like.
Yeah, I thought it was gonna be a real kick for you guys, and I put two strangers on the phone expecting them to be entertained by this. This was a fail on my part.
It was socially awkward to the extreme. Yes. So
to
the rec stream.
It's a pretty.
See what I did there.
In retrospect, it is rather funny, and I'm sure you and Jim will have laughs about that for some time to come.
We do every time we see each other, yeah, at your expense. So, Lance, is there anything else we need to bother him about?
What's coming up next? What do you got in the works?
Tomorrow I have an interesting day. I have to leave the house at about 6:30 a.m. to drive to D.C., and I'm going to rehearse with the Airmen of Note.
I heard of them.
Yeah.
Name dropper.
Yeah. And then I have to rehearse with the Marine Band, the President's own Marine Band.
Name dropper.
Yeah, I'm scared. That's why I'm dropping the name. Those cats are bad, man.
Take your passport.
Yes. Take every form of identification. I had actually to make sure my registration was up to date in my car today. I had to print one out. No, with my insurance card. Make sure they didn't reject me at the gate. Yeah. Anyway, but that's going on tomorrow. And then I'm also meeting with someone who actually works for the Marine Band as an engineer. He's a guy doing the editing of my newest CD. The thing I just recorded in Bulgaria with the trumpet concertos, 5 concertos that I recorded with an orchestra in Sofia, Bulgaria. So tomorrow kind of sums up what's coming up. The performance of the Airmen of Note is going to be at the Great American Brass Band Festival in June, and the performance with the Marine Band Brass Ensemble is going to be at ITG next week. And then there's the other CD that's kind of now in post-production. And that's what's coming up next, that stuff.
So if people want to find out more about what you have going on, what's the best way to track you down or find out what The
website is rexrichardson.net. And
Somebody own rexrichardson.com?
Apparently. Yeah.
Really? Buddy.
I think
it's
he's an impresario, man. No, it was probably, I think it's this real estate guy in Tennessee. His name is Rex Richardson, and
there's nothing there
sweet
right now.
if his voice sounded like yours.
It's also, well, this is
Yeah, you want to buy a duplex? I can hook you up. It's real nice. It's about 1,800 square feet. It's got wall carpeting and granite countertops. Man, it is bad. You put out 3% now, and I'll be able to put you into the place, and we'll go into escrow in about 4 minutes. I'm going to send you refrigerator magnets for the rest of your life. RexRichardson.com.
Oh, yes, that's exactly why.
Where
I don't have the .com, man. That guy.
What are the odds of us being able to get both of the Rex Richardsons on the same podcast?
It's a real honor to be with Mr. Rex Richardson here. Sorry, I beat you to the punch with the .com.
The .com.
In the sales, I recognized early that being on the web was going to be bad.
That guy sounds really not bright. There you go.
I know I'm not allowed to talk on most of these, but I did find the RexRichardson.com website. Yeah. It's in Tennessee.
I was right. The Tennessee real estate guy, right?
Yep.
Yeah, y'all come down here. It's bad.
If we all of us go to a site at once, will that make it crash?
Yeah, all four of us. That is not a good web hosting system. If this is a denial of
condominiums on here.
Denial of service attack. It can be brought with with 4 enthusiastic people. Yeah, man.
What about on social media? What's where do you tend to hang out there?
Facebook, Twitter, Rex Trumpet on Twitter. I've got a music page, Facebook, and normal personal page on Facebook. Yeah. I do also, I kind of do Instagram, but I always forget about it. I'm not really entirely sure what it's for yet, I suppose.
It's where the youngsters share the photos.
Oh, yes. The youngsters.
Yeah, basically.
Like Buddy.
Yeah, like Buddy. Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. He pulled out his cell phone earlier. He was probably Instagramming. So that was before he started playing the trumpet.
Yeah.
He was, yeah.
He's multitasking.
Yeah.
What's a producer's job? Play trumpet in the background. Pick your toes. Check your phone. Not in that order necessarily.
Buddy,
There's
I'm
a lot
confident.
Of responsibilities.
I'm confident that you could not be doing a better job.
Oh wait, introduce people to your mom. There's a lot of stuff. It's very involved. You wouldn't understand.
At least he kept the headphones on,
Well, he didn't though. You were talking. I don't think you noticed. He just he took the headphones off and he walked away. And Lance went like, "What?" Kind of mouthed what, and then he came back with a trumpet.
Oh, then yes, that was.
And
They're
then
still plugged in. They're still plugged in. I just took them off.
I made some flan.
Oh man, it is late. We are getting punchy. So,
No, go. It's okay.
Oh, I was going to close it. So what?
Yeah, close it. I was going to ask about Jens, but
I was just going to say that. Unfortunately, we are right up against David Letterman's final ever.
That's right.
Yeah, it's about to happen. So we are going to have to bump Jens. So sadly, he will not be able to be a guest this time. So, yeah, 2 trumpet players and one real estate investor guy are enough for one podcast. So
Everyone. Pray for Jens.
Everyone, prayforjens.org. Actually, you can help him out by buying some merchandise, and just keep him in your thoughts. So and prayers. Absolutely. Well, Rex, thank you for doing this twice.
Thanks, Rex.
Man.
Yeah.
This is awesome. I knew I was going to laugh my butt off again, so thanks.
I'm going to send you an email tomorrow saying that the sound is bad again and trying to reschedule you, even though I think it's fine.
Let's do this every 3 months, man. It'll be great.
Yeah, and we'll just keep asking you the same. He's going to start making up stories. So
I'll just get better and better with my answers. Man.
Yep. That eventually the Secretary of State had to fly to the Cyprus Republic of Turkey and actually intervene. There was like a prisoner swap, and it's going to get a lot better.
Right.
So.
He had to apply his incredible martial arts skills too in the process. It was deep.
Oh, by the way, I also wanted to thank you publicly, Rex, for agreeing to be the featured artist who answers 5 questions on my newsletter next month. So, which I haven't, I didn't ask you about, but that's really nice of you. So, since it's already in the queue to go out tomorrow, Lance did it this month, and so that's really awesome that you're going to do that for me next month.
It's my pleasure. Mr. Hitz.
There you go.
How can I deny you in this incredibly public forum with millions of fans tuning in?
So, all right. Thank you so much, Rex. Do you have any closing, words of wisdom for maybe any advice for Buddy?
I think I never have any words that can be considered words of wisdom, but I will say thanks to you guys for doing this, not just involving me, which was really awesome. I'm honored and just delighted to have a part. But thanks for doing this for the Brass Wall, guys. You guys are awesome. And thanks for involving Buddy. Buddy is one of my favorite people. He is like the next real deal, man. He is it. So this is great, man. Generations passing it on.
He has improved more at his instrument than the 3 of us have during this podcast. he's coming up in the rearview mirror. He's like, well, these guys are babbling. I'm going to get better.
I thought of taking a break to practice, but I don't know if you guys noticed or not.
Yeah, maybe not. So, all right. Well, I think that does it for another episode of the Brass Junkies. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in.
Thanks, guys.
You've been listening to The Brass Junkies on the Pedal Note Media Podcast Network. If you would like to help support the podcast in order to make more episodes like this one possible, please visit pedalnotemedia.com/donate for more details. Also, be sure to check out our latest recording, The Brass Recording Project, at brassrecordingproject.com. The Brass Junkies is produced by Austin Boyer and Buddy Deschler of the Fredericksburg Brass Institute. Executive producers are Andrew Hitz and Lance LaDuke. This has been a presentation of the Pedal Note Media Podcast Network.
Ho!